All right, what we're going to be talking about today is a thing called slope in a table. All right, now, yesterday we started a problem. We never had a chance to finish it. All right, and we had a table, and I need somebody to help me with the table. We had an x. That's a horrible table. That's not too bad. That's bad. That'll work. All right, we got an x and a y. So I need a volunteer from. All right, go ahead and tell me the ordered pairs. Hold on. I don't want to say the name. I'm pointing at her right now because I don't want you to be embarrassed on YouTube. Go ahead. -1, 0, 1, and what? 2. Okay. And what are the y's? 10, 18, 26, 34. Okay, perfect. Now this is a table, all right? And so we're going to take these ordered pairs and we're going to use any two ordered pairs to find the slope. Now, I think the table was written a little bit differently in the Khan Academy. It was written like horizontally, where they had what? -1 and then 0 and then 1 and then 2. So it was written kind of like, oh, wow, that's bad. Like this. Okay, and then you had what? -1 went with 10 and 0 went with 18 and 1 went with 26 and 2 goes with 34. Now, here's what I'd like you guys to do. I would like you guys to see, like write something down. I'm going to change colors here. Does everybody see, if we look at this way, what is the gap between a -1 and a 0? What's happening? It's going up by 1. So could you guys put +1? And right here, the gap between those is another what? +1. And the gap between those is a +1. Everybody, this is what's called your change in x. What's the gap between the y values? What's the gap? 8, right? +8, +8, +8. That's what we call the change in y. Just remember, your slope of a line is always the change in y over the change in x. Now, where could a student mess up if they did this little strategy? If they messed up, what might they put? They might put the 1 over the 8, but it's supposed to be what? 8 over 1. And what is 8 divided by 1? 8. So this slope is what? A total of just 8 units, right? 8 over 1, 8 over 1, 8 over, that's a pretty steep slope. Over here, what I want you guys to understand, I like to look at things vertically more than horizontally. Can you guys see how the gap between a 10 and an 18 is 8? Like 10 plus 8 is 18. 18 plus 8 is 26. 26 plus 8 is 34. -1 plus 1 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Once again, what does this represent? The change in the y. What does this represent? The change in the x. So whether the table looks like this or whether the table looks like this, I want you guys to know the change in the y over the change in the x. Okay? Now, so what would be the answer that I would put for the Khan Academy? If I had a little box, I just type in the number what? 8, and that would be it. Okay? So that's the very first one that you guys have in your journal. Let's go ahead and look at the next problem. Here we go. Can you guys please put this one carefully in your journal? Remember, we're dealing with what? Slope in a table. So here's our table. While you guys are writing that table carefully down in your journal so you know what to do, I'm going to craft it vertically over here. So I'll make an X and a Y. And I'll just use my straight line ability here. Make it nicer and neater. Here we go. That looks better. That looks better. Okay, so we've got 45, 49, 53, and 57. Okay, there we go. All right. All right, and then over here for our y values, you've got a 10, and then it drops down to a 5, and then it drops down to 0, and then it drops down to -5. Okay? So we're going to do this 3 different ways. And the reason why I'm doing it 3 different ways, I'm hoping that you guys see the connections between them. Okay? The first way All I want you to do is after you've written it down, I want you to figure out the gap between these numbers right here. What's happening from a 45 to a 49? Plus 4. So can you guys put a 4, that's a plus 4, that's a plus 4, that's a plus 4. Here's the thing though. What's happening between these two numbers? So we have to put a negative 5. Does that make sense? So if we're going down, we got to put a what? Negative. All right? So I'm just saying, this is just all I'm saying is this is the gap. Okay? That's all I'm using, the gap. It's going down by 5. Now, can everybody see over here? It's going up by 4 right here. Same thing, right? Going up by 4. And what's still happening here? It's still going what? Down by 5. So whether you write it horizontally or vertically, the same thing is happening. But what do we call this down by 5? We call that the change in the y values. What do we call this? The change in the x values. What is our slope? That's right. The change in the y over the change in the x. All right. And the student said negative 5 over 4. Does everybody see how important it is to make sure you put the change in the y over the change in the x? Because if a student put 4 over what? 4 over negative 5, would they get it wrong if they typed in a 4 over a negative 5? Yes, they would. Now listen up. We have another tool in the toolbox. What is that tool in the toolbox that we are allowed to use? Desmos. So guys, in Desmos, here's what I need you guys to do, okay? In Desmos, I need you guys to choose any 2 pairs. You don't have to type them all in, okay? Just any 2 ordered pairs. So I need you guys to make a table, and the little table will be x1 and y1. And then I want you guys to write the phrase that pays, which is y1 tilde mx1 plus b. So I need you guys to choose any 2 points. In fact, you guys can choose my 2 ordered pairs. Any one of these. Which one do you want me to use? 45 and 10. Okay, 45 and 10. What's another ordered pair that you would like me to use? 49 and 5. Okay, fine. I'll use 49 and 5. So I'm going to type those into Desmos right now. Other people don't use the same ones. Just use any ordered pairs that you want, as long as they are from this list. Okay? So here we go. I'm going to go to Desmos. You're going to go over here where it says table. We're going to add an item. We're going to make a table. And if we look back at it, it was what? 45 and 10. So I'm going to type in a 45, not a negative 40, but a 45 and a 10. And then I had a request for a 49 and a 5. So I'm going to put 49 and 5. Now, would you guys agree you're not going to see those points unless you zoom out? You'd have to zoom out. See that right there? Can you see those 2 points now? If you zoom out far enough, you can. Too far. There we go. That's probably enough. Now, what did I say the phrase was? The phrase that pays. Yeah, y1 tilde mx1 plus b. So if you can't see the tilde, all right, we have to go to A, B, C, and there's the little tilde sign. And then we're going to type in an M, which you can type it in right there if you want. Then the X, and you can use your keyboard too. 1 plus, I'm just going to use the keyboard that Desmos gives me so you can see it. Now, Desmos gives us 2 very important things. I'm going to take a screenshot of this, okay? Desmos gives us this right here, and what does that represent? That's the slope. And what does this represent? The y-intercept. So check this out. Does everybody see this point way up here at 0, 66.25? That's the y-intercept, but that negative 1.25 is the slope. You're like, wait a second. I thought we found the slope to be something else. What did we find the slope to be? Negative 5 over 4. Well, guess what? That's the same. Watch. If I type in negative 5 divided by 4, what's the decimal equivalent to it? Negative 1.25. Okay? So, if I type in negative 1.25, can you change it easily to a fraction in Desmos? Yes. So just click on it, and it what? Changes it to a fraction. That little fraction symbol there. Okay? So, what does that allow us to do? It allows us to feel very confident that our slope is what? Negative 5 divided by 4. And I can just hit what? Check. So we've done 2 problems in what? Slope in a table. And that's all you guys have to do. Okay? Now, we're going over one more concept. in this video. One more concept. I need you guys to put in your journal slope from 2 points. And we're just going to do one problem, and that's it. Okay? We're doing one problem, and that's it. Then you have the rest of the period to work on these and get them done. So could you guys please, in your journal right now, title it, ready? Title it, slope from 2 points, and I need you to write this ordered pair exactly as it appears. Write that ordered pair down. We're only doing one more, and that's it. So I'm going to write it down. Ready? I have -10, comma 1. But watch how I'm going to write my ordered pair. See that this ordered pair right here? I'm going to put it directly underneath it. If I was pressed for time and I wanted to just get done with the slope and get it done quickly without having to do a whole bunch of complicated math, this is how I would do it if I had a test and I was a time test, okay? Now, we're going to do it another way as well. We're going to use the slope formula, which is what? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we'll do it the slope formula way. But if you do it this way, you have to label it. There's your first x coordinate. There's your first y coordinate. There's your second x coordinate. And there's your second y coordinate. All right? Remember, we also said you could use a what? You could make it into a table. So if we made it into a table, we would make it -10 and a 1 and a 0 and a -4. So what do I want you guys to do in your journal? I want you guys, whatever I write down, I want you to write down. Okay, so this is what I do. Have you guys ever, do you guys remember, has anybody ever taught you the number line? All right, so in the number line, it's very important that you know the concept of what? 0 on the number line. That's very important, okay? So check this out. Does everybody see -10 to 0? So if I had like a -10 right there, and I'm going from -10 and I'm going where? I'm going to 0. I basically, what do I move? I move 10. So the gap between a -10 and a 0 is 10. What do we call that? The change in the x, because these are our x values, these are our y values. Now, conversely, I'm going to change colors now. If I'm at right here, I'm at the number 1. Okay, I'm at the number 1. That's where I'm starting. Okay, but then I finish like over here at a -4. Well, what happens when I jump from 1 to 0? I go what? -1, and then I jump from 0 to -4. How far have I? Yeah, so the gap between a 1 and a -4 is I would have to do what? Take away a 5. Does everybody see how I did that? 1 minus 5 is? 1 minus 5 is -4. So we call that the what? The change in the y. Can you guys see that's the same thing I would do in my table? 1 minus 5, and over here, what would this be? A plus 10. So what do we call this once again? The change in the y over the what? Change in the x. Okay, so this is why if I know my slope is the change in y over the change in x, I can use my ordered pairs this way, or I can use a table. And what number am I going to put on top? -5. What number am I going to put on the bottom? 10. And does that reduce? It does reduce. It reduces to what? -1 over 2. Okay? It reduces to -1 over 2. I can see my answer. It's going to be C. Now, that is how you would do it if we were just doing kind of a logic way. Does that make sense? It's not like it's a textbook formula way. But could we do the textbook formula way? Absolutely. Do you guys remember what I ask everybody to do when you're doing it the formula way? Open up what? Open up a group of parentheses, right? Now, what am I going to label this as? y2, y1, x2, x1. So what number am I going to plug in right there for my y2 if I'm doing it this way? I've labeled them somewhere. Do you see where I've labeled them? I've labeled it right there. So what do I have to do? I've got to put a -4. And then what do I have to put right here? 1. And then for my x2, I got to put a 0. And then for my x1, I got to put a -10. Does everybody understand that this way, if you use the calculator, Oh, how do we get fractions in the calculator real quick? See, how do we get this in the calculator? Somebody said it. Alpha, and then there's what? Y equals, and then you press the enter. So alpha y equals enter is how you would do it in the calculator. So I'll show you real quick for those of you. Let me clear out my matrix. Sorry, that's another class. All right. So if we hit alpha y equals enter, you could do this. And then you could just easily type it in, right? Parentheses, and what do we start with? -4. See how that we just type in a -4 like that, minus open parentheses 1. And then you go down, and you do open parentheses, and what do we type in? 0. So we have to put 0. But then you have to make sure you do minus parentheses, and then you type in a -10. And then you press what? You press enter, and what does it spit out? -1/2. If you use parentheses and you type in everything exactly as it appears. Here we get -4 minus 1. By hand, it's a -5. Here we get 0 plus 10, which is a 10, and that still reduces to -1/2. Okay? Now, this is the by hand method. But what tool are you allowed to use? Desmos. So you're allowed to use Desmos. So if we went to Desmos, all right, I'm not going to get rid of this. What's the only thing I'm going to do? I'm just going to get rid of these numbers, right? And what am I going to use instead? I'm going to use -10 and a 1, right? -10 and a 1. So I just type in a -10. Go ahead and do it with me. If you're doing it with me, that's great. If you're not, you can pause the video and do it with me. And then we have what? A 0 and a -4. So we're going to go over here. We're going to put a 0 and a -4. Automatically, because you already have y1 tilde mx1 plus b, what shows up right there? Where the hand is. Can you guys see the hand? -0.5. You're like, wait a second. What the heck is -0.5? What fraction is -0.5? -1/2. And right here, what's the y-intercept at? Right here at a what? -4. So what is, as a quick review, everybody, as a quick review, how many ordered pairs do you need in order to figure out the slope and the y-intercept? How many? Just 2. That's it. Just 2. And then you can find out the slope and the y-intercept to any line that you want, as long as you have how many points? 2. That's it. So on this one, what's the only thing we're worried about, guys? Slope. What are we worried about this one? Slope. Slope in a table, slope in ordered pairs. So what does a table look like? This looks like a table. This looks like a set of ordered pairs. And then you can feel confident that your answer, -1/2, is correct. Okay? So if you miss it, what are they showing you guys how to use? The slope formula. Okay? Change in, this one is what? They did this one, this is the change in x over the change in y, but we always know the slope is the change in y over the change in x. All right? And that little delta symbol that I use, right? That little delta symbol, that means what? Change in. That's what it means. Okay? Y'all have a good day and good luck.